Hi everybody, Stu AG6AG. This video is going to be a training video on Winlink as used in MCOM. It's going to be a little different. I'm designing this video to be a group watch environment. Our plan is to show this video within a classroom setting or a Zoom meeting where we can take breaks and allow people to ask questions and make sure that they get the entire feeling of what we're trying to do and learn about the different facets of WinLink and the hardware, software, and other things that are associated with it. Now, we're going to get in depth on the four areas that we deal with any kind of digital RF communication: hardware, software, transport, and delivery. And we're going to get started where everybody seems to have the most difficulty getting things hooked up. I want to start with hardware. Now, there are several things that we need to have in order to run digital radio communications. We need, obviously, a computer. And we need a computer with enough horsepower to go ahead and operate the WinLink software and all of the supplemental things that we need to run for the transport and everything else. Now, the big thing about the computer is that it should be running the most current supported version of Windows, because all of the WinLink software is written just for Windows. And so far, unless you're running a Windows VM or something along that lines, you're not going to be able to run it in a Mac or a Linux environment. Now, all of the remote equipment or the side equipment to the computer is attached via USB. USB is a wonderful technology. It's eliminated all these different port and connection types that we used to have to deal with the older PCs. I remember dealing with serial ports and parallel ports, sound cards that I had to set interrupts and actual hardware addresses on in order to get to work, and have additional software shims in there to make them work way farther out in the operating system and not so far as being a plug-in module. Now, the problems with USBs are kind of debilitating sometimes. A USB device will change its ID without really warning you, and that can cause real problems, especially when we're going to be using USB sound devices and USB COM ports and other things as we deal with digital communication. Having that change affects the software that's accessing it and causes errors, and sometimes it can be very frustrating. The last part of this video is going to cover basically service ideas, repair ideas, how to make it work when it doesn't work. So, we're going to go over finding the COM port or the sound device or whatever, so you know what the idea is and different strategies towards that. USB tends to be a little more susceptible to RF interference. And RF interference or RF noise can be a real enemy to us when we're trying to do digital communications. I mean, most of the time we can hear ourselves over the interference. We can hear the people we're talking to over the interference. But digital is a little bit more sensitive, so we really need those clean carriers. Um, and hey, an update or something will change the default device all by itself without even letting us know. Good example is you run some updates or you unplug and plug in your USB to try to re-identify it, and all of a sudden that USB sound device you want to use for your radio becomes your default playback device. And well, what that means is every time the computer makes a little noise when you log in or whatever, Well, that's going out the radio and not coming out your speakers. So if you're trying to watch a YouTube video, that's all getting blasted out your speakers, all getting blasted out your radio and not your speakers. So that can be a real problem. Also, it can change speed settings and audio levels. So it can actually try to go from talking to a COM port at uh, 3800 to talking to it at 9600. So those things can change. So you need to know where all that information is to deal with it. Now, things that can help this from happening, of course, is to make sure all devices are plugged in at the startup of the computer. In other words, if you're rebooting the computer or you're turning the computer on after being turned off overnight, you want to make sure all the USB devices are plugged in. And if they have individual on-off buttons on them, you want to make sure those buttons are on so they can go ahead and identify as they would during a normal boot up cycle. You want to make sure that all of those devices are connected to the ports they were connected to when you initially configured the system. Laptops, you unplug something from the USB on the left side, and then, oh, I can't get it. You go over, you plug it over on the right side, and what happens? All the IDs for that USB device change. So you want to try to get them in the same port. And in a lot of cases with laptops, you don't have a lot of USB ports to begin with. So there is some advantages to getting a USB hub. And since the majority of everything we use for digital is low speed, it can get away with running off a single USB port on your computer and having that port feeding a USB hub for all the devices. So there's a thought. Now, even with all the best laid plans, all the best laid timing, doing everything that you can to make that stuff not change IDs, hey, sometimes it'll happen. And when that happens, you need to know what software accesses the device that's changed. You also need to know what program device settings are for that device and where they live in your software. And you know what? You also need to know and understand where to look to see device changes, such as name, ports, things like that, in your operating system. Okay. And we're going to try to take a look at that as well in this video. Now, as far as hardware goes, we need a radio too, right? And this actually shows the radio up here as well as a SignalLink USB sound device. And the sound device is specifically sold for RF digital operations. And it has a lot of neat features like the ability to key the radio automatically so you don't have to have Vox turned on. There's a lot of advantages to doing it with this device. And this is not the only device that does that. There are several other devices out there, such as DigiRigs. There's a lot of stuff out there that is very inexpensive. I've had hit and miss with that stuff, and I don't usually recommend it. I like the SignalLink because once I set my values in the computer for the audio feed, I can then fine tune it from the outside, and I'm not trying to mess with a mouse. I've got some knobs I can work with when I need to fine tune the output and input of the audio back and forth from the radio to the computer. Now, regardless of the sound device you're using, you need to be able to interface with the radio. Now, if you look, here's the back of a SignalLink, and we have an RJ45 plug that is utilized for the radio. And that is basically provides you 8 pins to move data from the SignalLink into the radio, such as your audio in, your audio out, your ground, your push to talk. There are other things that you can bring in, like additional grounds on these wires that are separate, stuff like that. And of course, you have a speaker connection, an auxiliary connection, and a monitor connection. The monitor connection you can actually plug a speaker into and monitor what's going in and out of the SignalLink. The speaker, believe it or not, you're going to probably, if you do not have a digital port on your radio, you're going to have to hook into that speaker for your audio into the signal link from the radio. That speaker jack right there will go from that speaker jack to your speaker plug on your VHF, UHF radio, or even possibly on your HF rig, depending on how you wire this up. And yes, Signal Link works great on HF too. Now, inside the Signal Link, if you look right, wrong hand, if you look right, there we go. I got to bend a little. You look right there, you're going to see 4 wires, right? White, orange, orange, and then I've got a white, blue, and then there's another solid orange. But what those wires do is it takes the input and output, which is written there, push to talk, mic, speaker, and ground, and it puts them on different ports, and the numbers list the different ports, different pins on the RJ45, and the numbers there list those pins. So pin 1 right now on this I have going to the speaker, pin 2 I have going to the mic, pin 3 I have going to push to talk, and then ground is pin 6. And once you do these jumpers, you're going to wire up the cable, that RJ45, to attach to your radio. Nice part about Signal Link is you can purchase a cable from Signal Link that will work with your radio. You can even purchase little block adapters that are just little boards that you push down, and it does all the jumpers for your radio. Additional cost, well, you're probably going to be an additional $30-40 to do that from the price of the Signal Link. But if you're not into soldering and crimping and trying to push wires in little holes that are very small, it is an easier way to deploy it. I deploy mine like this because it's kind of the way that everybody in the county did it, so I'm continuing with that particular method. Now, the radio I have here, this Yaesu, does not have a digital plug, so you notice that I have another cable. That cable goes right into my microphone jack. That is how the Signal Link gets the push to talk and the transmit audio into the radio. And of course, in the back, like I said, I've got to use the speaker jack. This creates some additional issues when you're trying to adjust settings, because now I have to make sure that I set the radio volume to a certain level, and I always maintain that radio volume when I'm doing digital. It just takes a little bit more due diligence on your part to make sure every time you're getting ready to run digital services that you get that back where it belongs before you start. Or you may go, why isn't this working? And we'll talk about those things as well. Anyway, some radios actually have a data port. And that data port, that right there, is a regular DB9. And this happens to be a TTY TH9000D. And there is a kit that you can build to put that port in. And that's what I did on this particular radio. But it is identical plug and identical hookups as it would be to a Alinco single band. Anyway, makes it easier for us because we have a lot of Alinco signal bands out there in production at EOCs, and as they die, we can replace them with these TYTs, at least for now. So that pretty much covers some of the basics on hardware. So we're going to move on here, but before we do, I want you to pause the video and take some questions and answers between yourselves, or there should be hopefully a designated person there that is sitting in as the instructor, which should be able to help you. So don't worry, I'll be right here when you come back. Well, hi everybody, I'm back, and Guess what? I'm AG6AG Stu, and I hope that the instructor was able to answer all of your questions. Now, the real question, though, comes down to what's next on my agenda. Well, okay, we kind of got hardware dealt with. You now know what you need. It's not all hooked up yet, but we've got to take a look at something new. We have to look at the software. We have to look at installing the software and all that good stuff because we need the software on the computer to get everything hooked up and talking. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to jump on this nice Windows 11 Pro fresh install. I've cleaned the desktop up a little bit so there's not a lot of stuff on it, but I wanted to give you a general idea of what the walkthrough was with this. Now, we're not going to set up any accounts or set up any programs or configure anything. We are just going to get them installed. That is our project. Winlink Express, sound modem, VARA FM. And we're also going to use EasyTerm. We're going to install that because it's a good diagnostic tool, all right, for our packet stuff. Also allows you to connect to packet BBBSs. So, you know, it has enough uses that it becomes a good thing to have on your machine. And also, this will be the stuff that is most likely on the equipment you're running in the EOC, or you may be asked to install it at the EOC, depending on what your area EC wants you to do. Okay? So I've got Microsoft Edge and Google Chrome on this machine, and they are the same but different. I wanted to show you some of the differences, okay? First off, Microsoft Edge, let's go to winlink.org. All right, we're going to go to Downloads. We're going to go to User Programs, and we are going to download the bottom one, which is Winlink Express. Okay, now it's downloaded that. Now, while I'm in here, okay, I'm going to do a back arrow and I'm going to go to VARA products and I am going to download VARA FM. Now, VARA FM is loaded. Now, let's say that I just click on this. Well, look what happened. How do I get back to my downloads? Because I just, you know, basically close that download little button that allows me to get there. So there's a couple different ways. I can launch the File Explorer and I can go to downloads and they'll be listed in here and I can work with them directly in here. Or within the browser here, within the Edge browser, I can click on downloads and I get this little page back. Now, if I was to do this with Google Chrome, let's go to winlink.org and let's go to download. And I'm going to download VARA products and I am going to go ahead and download well, yeah, I'm here. Let's go ahead and download VARA FM. And there it goes. Notice there's a 1 after this. It means that that's the one that I downloaded from Chrome because it's already in the download directory. And let's go to user programs here and we'll also download Winlink Express. And again, both those are done. Now here's a key difference. So if I click up there to close it or whatever, this remains. So I don't have to go looking for those installs. Okay. So from here, I can actually just run this. However, if I go to download here, I actually can run it from here by going open file, right? Little bit different terminology, but same thing. So we'll go ahead, let's go ahead and open the file here for Winlink Express. And there I am. It's opened up the zip file. Now you don't have to unzip this. All you got to do is you can double click it, and I should get a pop-up asking me if I'm sure I want to do this and allow it to make changes. I'm going to say yes, and it is going to go, and I'll create a shortcut, and it's going to go right on the desktop. But I do not want to launch it because I don't want to have to do any configuration. I'm going to say finish. Okay. Basically, same thing on Chrome. No difference there. Now, let's go to Vara FM, and we'll double click that. And again, we're going to be asked if we're willing to install it. I'm going to accept the agreement. I'm going to say next. I'm going to take the default. I'm going to create a desktop icon, and I'm going to install. And it is now finished installing. I am not going to launch my program. Well, there I am with that. Pretty simple, huh? Now let's get to the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and close this. We're going to go back to Edge, and I am going to search for sound modem. And up at the very top is the UZ7HO personal page, and this is where our install exists. So there's the install right there. Now let's take a look at that really quick in Google Chrome, because this is going to behave a little different. Let's see, I want to type in sound modem. And again, there it is right at the top. I'm going to click on it. Now, let's download it with Google Chrome. I'm going to go down here and I need to find the sound modem 114.zip. That's the file I'm after. I'm going to click on it. Nothing happens. Oh no, it's broken. Well, no, it's not. Let me show you why. I am going to copy the link address. I'm going to open a fresh tab, and I'm going to paste the link into it and hit enter. And it says insecure download blocked. Do I want to keep it? Now, why does it say that? So let's look again. There's no HTTPS here. His system is incapable. Now it's downloaded it again, right? So if I choose keep, it'll go ahead and download it to the download directory, right? That's a good thing. Now what happens if I click on it over here on Edge? It downloaded it successfully. Now, if I look here though, it asks me if I want to keep it or not. Here, it doesn't say, it says cannot be downloaded, right? So it doesn't really say why. If I say keep this, it's going to tell me this file cannot be downloaded securely. Malicious attackers, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to keep it anyway. Now, that is all because he does not support HTTPS for his download. Okay. Now, this gets even a little crazier. Let's go ahead and I showed you the difference between the two programs. That in Chrome, I actually had to paste it into the address bar to get it to even consider downloading it or give me an error. Now, I need to also download EasyTerm from this site. It's right here, easyterm49.zip. If I do the same thing, it says can't be downloaded securely. I've got to go here and I got to say keep as well. Now, Why would someone not want to download this stuff, right? Why would that be the case? Well, very simply, it doesn't want to do it because it is an environment where you're downloading something that is not on a site that's identifying itself with a HTTPS or an SSL cert. That's really the entire thing. Anyway, so we look here, and I still don't have that download. Oh my goodness. We're going to try that one more time. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to tell it to keep it. And I'm going to say keep anyway. There we go. I must have clicked the wrong button there. I'll be able to see later, but that's probably what happened. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and install Sound Modem. We're going to click on it. There's Sound Modem. We're going to right click and we're going to select copy. Then we're going to go over here to this PC and the C drive, and we're going to have to create a directory. So I'm going to say new and folder, Sound Modem. I'm going to paste it. Now, we need to create a shortcut to it that's easier to get with it. We got to go in here and open up this Sound Modem file every single time and everything else. So I am going to right click this and I'm going to say copy. Then I'm going to go to the desktop and I'm going to right button click and I'm going to say paste shortcut. That's very important. I do not want to paste a copy of this out here. I only want a shortcut. The reason for that is it is going to create the shortcut, or it's going to create the configuration file in the same directory that the executable file is in, which is this directory here. So when I launch this, it will launch this and create that directory. Okay, it'll create the config right here. All right. Now, I'm going to close that. Now we're going to open EasyTerm. This is going to be the same thing. I am going to right-hand mouse click, and I am going to copy the term program. Back in again. Create a new folder under C. Call it EasyTerm. Paste the executable in there. Right-click. Copy. Right button click again. Paste shortcut. I'll edit the file again. And all I'm doing when I edit this is just cleaning it up so it's more recognizable to me. There we go. All right. So those two programs are installed. I'm going to close this browser. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to close this browser. Now, you have your foundation. There's one thing we're going to do, though. I have to show this to you because this is going to bite you no matter what version of Windows 11 you're running, whether it is Pro or it is Home Edition. I am going to double click on Sound Modem. Smart App Control blocked a file that may be unsafe. All right. So, learn more. It'll take me to a website, send feedback, all that good stuff doesn't matter. I'm just going to say, okay, that's my only way out and I can't run it. So what I have to do is I have to go in and I have to go under my Windows security. Now this is running Defender. If you're running something like Norton or McAfee, you're going to end up having to jump through a lot of hoops to make this work. This is fairly easy. All I need to do is go into app and browser control, and I need to shut off smart app control. Once I do that, when I double click on this, it's going to warn me that Windows protected my PC, but I have a choice. It says don't run, right? But I have another choice. I have more info, and I can say run anyway. And it will go ahead and launch my sound modem program. Now, this is very important. I need to adjust these settings. This software needs to be authorized in the firewall because it talks to the other software to control the sound card via the network. So I'm going to say show more options here, right? And that's going to give me a choice of both networks, private networks and public networks. I am going to turn it on for both. And I'm going to say allow. And that's done. Now, Vara FM, much easier when I launch it. It asked me the same question about the network, but no issue with the app. Now, why did we have an issue with the other app? Because it was not signed, okay? Was not signed by the guy that wrote it. And I'll allow your instructor to explain what the risks are, but to be honest with you, we need the program to do what we need to do. There's literally hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of versions of this software running out there in the wild without any problems or complaints. Uh, that doesn't mean something couldn't happen, but for now, I think we have a reasonably secure model with that. Anyway, VAR is open. I'm just going to shut it again. We're not going to configure it yet. But now, as you can see, all of our software is installed. So what next, right? Well, I think I am going to let the instructor answer your questions. How's that sound? So I'll be back, I promise. I'll be right here waiting patiently for you. So listen to the instructor and we'll move forward from there. Hey, hi. Sorry about that. I guess the instructor's done with the questions and answers, so now we can get on to the next part of the training. And of course, I'm Stu, AG6AG. After all, I think I have to ID every 10 minutes. Oh, anyway. No, that's only on the air. Okay, with all that, let's see where we're at. So we've dealt with the hardware. We've installed the software. Transport. So in transport, we're actually going to have to configure everything back up. Okay, we've got to configure the software that we've already installed, make that all work properly. That's going to be our goal here, right? So with that, let's take a look at our radio and signal link. Okay, I've got the signal link right here. I've got the 2-meter radio right here. I've got the USB cable right here. We're going to plug that into the computer. So I'm going to stretch off camera for a minute. There we go. All right, get back in position. So you notice that the light up there went on, right? When I plugged it in. I can turn it off. I can turn it on. Okay. That just shuts down the sound card portion of it, right? Now, let's take a look on the PC at what we now have. So I am going to go in and I am going to right click the button for start, and I am going to go to the device manager and I am going to open up audio inputs. And oh, look at that. I've got my USB codec here and my USB audio codec there. I have one for the line. I have one for the speakers. So let's say that I want to turn around and verify what their actual name is. So I would unplug them from the USB. Notice they disappear. I'll plug the USB back in and notice that they have reappeared. So that actually helps a lot. It allows me to verify that the device is being recognized and the drivers are proper for that device, right? Plugging it in and out. Now, it's not such a big deal when we deal with a signal link because those are pretty standard audio chips, but some of the more obscure chips, the drivers may not be available directly in the Windows distribution. You may have to download them and install them and do some other stuff. So just be aware of that. This is the fastest way to see if your computer is talking to your audio device. Okay? Now that I know their names and I see that they're all no errors and stuff like that, I'll go ahead and close the device manager. And then I'm going to open up my sound settings. So I'm going to go to my settings. I am going to go to system. I am going to go to sound. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify what my defaults are. So up at the top, choose where to play sound. Okay. I want it to go to speaker HP. And from the pull down here, of course, I could change it. I don't want it to go to USB. I want it to go to speaker HP. For my default microphone, I want to go to microphone array. I can tell this is on the laptop because it lists it as a Realtek high definition audio. The other devices are the USB. I do not want those checked. Why not? Well, whenever Windows decides to play a noise, I don't want it going out through the radio. Kind of an obvious thing when you think about it, but a lot of times we don't think about it. So, very important setting. Next, we're going to go down here and we're going to go to more sound settings. It's right above the related settings. And I'm going to get the traditional old school sound configuration stuff right out here in front of me. Now, this is a quick thought, okay? I always have a problem sometimes remembering this, but the speakers that I'm dealing with are the output out of the computer going into the sound card, going into the radio for transmit. So when I'm adjusting levels for my transmit level, it's actually the speakers, right? You'd think it, on transmit it would be the mic, but it isn't. It's the speakers that are transmitting out of the radio. And then of course, recording devices, my line in is what's coming in from the radio, so that's what I'm receiving. Just one of those things that I run into every once in a while mentally. I have to always double think that, because when I think of a microphone, I think of the microphone on the radio, and that's the wrong way to think about it. Okay? Now, I also am able to verify that the checkbox here means this is the default audio device. It is the Realtek. And the little phone here means this is the default data device. And if you don't have multiple other devices, then you would want to set this to whatever you want your default. Okay? All right. Now that we've gone through all of this, okay, now we need to work at setting some levels. So we're going to start, though, with configuring sound modem. And we have to get our base configuration set up for it. So I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to go to my devices. The output volume and the input volume are not controllable from this interface. So we're going to go to devices. And oh my goodness, they're set to the Realtek. I don't want that. I want them set to the to the USB audio codecs. Now, I'm checking these 4 checkboxes. These 4 checkboxes are TX rotation, single channel output, color waterfall, and stop waterfall when minimized. I'm going to also enable the KISS interface. Remember when we talked about the firewall, this is the ports that this is listening on for connections. So we've opened the firewall so things will be able to listen. Things will be able to connect to those ports. Push to talk. I'm going to turn off the dual push to talk. I don't need that. But the serial port PTT is none. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and click OK on that. And it tells me I must restart the program. So I'll close it and then I will reopen it. All right. Now, my other setting is modems, and that is basically all the transport settings. There you go. All the defaults are fine. I do turn on KISS optimization, and I do go to the bit recovery pull down, and I change it from none to single. Okay, this works the best overall for me. And you're welcome to play with these. There's all sorts of other TX delays and other things that you might need to mess with, depending on the radio you're hooked to and everything else. For the most part, though, 99% of the time, you don't even have to look at that. All right? Okay. Now, time for us to start setting levels. So, here we are with the radio. My baby radio, there you are. So I'm going to put my hand over here and I am going to turn down all of the knobs on the signal link. The delay, the receive, and the transmit are all at their very lowest point. And I'm going to leave them there while we do our initial setup. So, right now, I want to set my audio receive level. So how am I going to do that? Well, the audio always comes in on the line. So I'm going to go here to levels, and I am going to turn it down to nothing. And then I am going to turn my receive volume up straight. Now, I am going to reach over to the radio and turn my squelch off. Now I am going to bring my line level up, and see the waterfall? Let me move it down a little farther for you. I've got a nice light blue, but I want it higher than that. I need to get it up here to where I've got green and yellow. And we're getting close. I like that because I've got green with spackles of yellow in there. So that's where I want it for my receive volume. Okay. Now, I also want to take a look at advanced and make sure that the exclusive mode is properly set for my installation. If you only have one signal link, don't worry about it. If you only are going to be using if you're going to be using VARA and sound modem at the same time, you might want to consider turning this off on this signal link device, okay? But we're only going to be using them one at a time. We're not going to have them both open so at the same time. So we can leave this, and it makes things just a little bit more coherent, okay? In other words, it happens at real time, and sound we kind of want real time. Anyway, we go ahead and say okay on that, and we are done with that. I'm going to turn my squelch back up until it goes away. That's all set to go. Now, the other part's a little more interesting, okay? We're going to go to the playback side of this, and we're going to double click on the speakers. And we are going to go, first off, we're going to check enhancements, and we want to make sure that the disable all enhancements is checked. All right. Now we're going to go over here to advanced, and we're going to check the same thing. We'll go ahead and give it exclusive mode. And as far as spectacle sound, leave it off. Okay. All right. Now we go to our levels, and we're going to turn our level all the way down to 0. And I am going to open up, and I'm momentarily going to go back to just the PC. And I am going to open up my calibration box here. Okay. I'll put it down there. Well, here, we'll put it up on top like that. And let's go ahead and we will put our equipment back up so we can see it. Now, our TX is all the way down already. Again, I have low power and I'm not operating on the frequency that everybody else is on. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a high tone on this. Now, I see nothing happening because there's no audio. What I want to do is I'm going to pay attention to this light right here, which is the PTT light, and I am going to bring the speaker volume up till it hits at about 46. I'll bring it down till it goes away. Right there, 36, 38. All right, so at 38, though, I'm going to double that. Okay, I'm going to take this up to about 76. Now, if I'm way up on the high end on this when this happens, I'm just going to do my best to take it up as high as I can go and not feel that I'm going to overdrive it. Okay, but for now, we'll just go in here to 78 and we'll leave it there. And I'm going to select OK. And I am going to turn off that momentarily. Okay. Now, from here, I'm going to check a couple other things. I want to tell my system, because I'm only using this system for digital, I'm going to tell it never to play sounds like, the computer comes on and all that stuff. I don't want any like Windows sounds to play. And I don't want it to play a startup sound. And for communications, I'm going to tell it to do nothing. Okay? When Windows detects communication activity, do nothing. All right. We're going to apply to that. And then I'm going to close this, and we're going to take the rest of this over to our TX volume. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put a high tone down there again. And I am going to be listening on another radio on the right frequency, and I'm going to bring the volume up. And I'm bringing it up just about where it's at its highest point, but not quite. I don't want it to clip. And I'm listening, and I'm doing this by ear. This is not the most efficient way to do it, but that's what we got with this, right? So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to leave this open, and I'm going to go back to my PC, and I am going to open up Easy Term. Easy Term helps me verify the settings on the system. So I'm going to go to Settings, and for my station setup, I'm just going to use AG6AG. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use a club call. K6 VCS. And I won't put a mailbox in. I'll leave all the rest there, and I'll click OK. Need to do a restart. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to select connect, and I'm going to attempt, now I have to go over here, and I've got to change my frequency back to the one that we use over here. I'll do it also so you can hear what's going on. And I'm going to attempt to actually connect to a PBBS at, let's see, VC-EDU. Okay, so let's see if we're able to connect. There we are. We're able to connect. That gives me a good feeling that, you know what, this is pretty close. My audio is close enough I can probably use it. We'll go ahead and say bye and disconnect. All right. That makes me kind of happy. Now, if I'm in an environment where there are VARA RMSs and I can get to them, I can use and set up VARA for a little bit better calibration. So let's talk about calibrating it if I do have VARA. Okay, so we start with our VARA setup. There will be nothing that I really do in here, okay, because I'm not going to put in a VARA license. And I'll go to my sound card setup, and again, we have to change it to the USB sound card, like so. Then I'm going to close that. Now, the push to talk is going to be Vox, and we're not going to worry about any of the settings, okay? And we are going to say okay. Now, this is where the road we kind of reach the asphalt here, okay? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back in and we're going to go under our sound card, and there is a tune feature. You see we're at 5 dB right here, okay? So what I want to see happen is I want to hear this thing go into push to talk. Now, I'm going to hit tune, and I should hear it make a noise. All right, so that tells me that my bass audio is high enough. Now I'm going to try to do what's called an auto calibration. That auto calibration I'm going to do against AG6AG-10, which is a supported VARA RMS. And we'll go ahead and we'll start the calibration. Now, interestingly enough, this thing isn't going to transmit for the entire method of this. It's actually going to take a little time before it keys because the audio has to get to a high enough level. All right, so here we go. This usually kicks in between the 6th and 7th. All right, it thinks my TX is not high enough, so I will turn it up and we'll do it again. Now it thinks it's too high. All right, so I may be in a situation because other people were on there, I am going to either have to wait until everybody drops, or I can do a little magic here. Because I am so close to everything, I can actually change the frequency that this RMS is listening on temporarily. So we're going to go back and try it again. And we're going to see what we change. Nope. It still thinks it's too high. Okay, we'll bring it down a little bit more. This isn't surprising because it's actually detecting over deviation. All right, I'm going to grab this a little hotter and just bring it down quite a ways. Let's see. Let's see what it does now. Anytime that you're getting additional noise or stuff on the system, someone else is trying to connect or do something, it causes these kinds of things to happen. Still thinks it's too high. I go down much further, it's going to be off. The real problem we have is to give it enough drive at a base level. There it is. It thinks that that's perfect. Okay. Now we have our base settings. We're going to try one more time. I want to see if it comes back the same and says it's happy. Yeah, all right. So, hardware's configured and my transports are all set to go. Now, of course, the last thing we have is going to be all of the things that we're going to do for delivery, right? So, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a Winlink install and get that all squared away. Let me close this and let's go ahead and launch Winlink. Well, you know what? Since I'm taking a break to set up Winlink, why don't we just go ahead and allow the instructor to answer some questions for you on what we just covered as far as transport goes. And hey, I'll see you soon. Hey, welcome back. It's Stu AG6AG. And you know what? We did pretty good, I think, on covering the setup of the transport and everything else. But you know what? We've got to work on the latest and last part, which is delivery. How are we going to get this stuff delivered? What transport? All that. It all comes together right here. So, let's go ahead and jump into it. Well, all right, I got an account all set up on this. I'm in as K6 VCS. That's the Ventura County Amateur Radio Society club call. They are a very technical club out here in Ventura County. If you have any issues or anything else, you should probably come to a meeting and ask some of the folks that are there. Okay, really good source of information, from antennas to radios to coax to repeaters to digital. So it's a good location to get your questions answered. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the rest of this transport thing, right? So here we are. Here is Telnet. Let's go ahead and open a Telnet decision, or a Telnet connection, and make sure it works. Yes, that means that my username, everything is correct in here, and that it is able to connect to the CMSs. Okay. Now, transport is an important thing to understand. I'm going to just cover it briefly, and hopefully the instructor will get a little bit more into it. But you know, we all the time say, "Oh, well, let's check in on packet," or something like that. Actually, when we use packet to send a message, we don't necessarily have to send it to a PBBS. And the terminology of sending messages with packet is nothing more than a transport, much like IP, TCP IP, much like VARA is a transport, much like RDOF is a transport, Telnet is a transport, Mesh is a transport, okay? It's not a program that we would consider at the application layer where you're looking at it to do things, okay? Now, let's take the opportunity now, though, to go ahead and let's get packet set up. I'm going to turn this down so that doesn't interrupt me. And I'm going to open packet, and there's a few settings that I'm going to have to make. First off, I'm going to go over here to settings, and I'm going to define my packet TNC. My packet TNC is actually a KISS packet, right? Now, my packet TNC model is going to be acknowledge mode. My serial port is going to be TCP. Look at that. Localhost 8100. Remember that, right? That is the default. If you changed it, you need to change it there. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to tell it where sound modem is, right there. And I'm going to tell it to automatically launch packet sound modem when we go to start this. All the rest of the settings, I'm not going to touch. I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm not going to turn on auto connect either, and I'm going to sit there and update. This is going to close, and it's going to reopen. Now, I can click up here to channel selection, and I can say update table via internet. And it will update all the RMSs that are locally available. I'm going to connect to AG6AG-10, right? And verify that I can get on packet. I'm going to move this over so we can watch the connection screen over here as well, right? Just right there. So here we go. There we are. Packet works. All right. Now, let's go ahead and we will set up VARA FM. When we open this, we're going to get the same sort of questions. So I need to go to settings for VARA, and VARA is on the default 8300. Our data port is 8301. That's all correct. That is the correct location of the VARA that I'm running, and I want to automatically launch the VARA TNC when open. Automatic calling again is disabled. I'm going to click close. It's going ahead and launching VARA, and we're ready to check. We're going to do the same thing also. We're going to go to channel selection, and we're just going to say update via telnet, and it'll update all this for VARA. And we will, again, select the same one, and we'll see if we can connect via VARA. Now, I do not have a registration key put into VARA. I am using what is basically known as the free trial mode. A lot of things are disabled, such as higher speeds and things like that. So, again, there are advantages to purchasing the license on this. You purchase under your call sign, and as long as your call sign is what you're connecting from is the account that you're using, you will be able to use the license. Okay, that means that if you're using your call sign dash 1 or 2 or 3 using a SSID, you can still use the VARA license. That is also true, by the way, with Winlink Express if you choose to pay them to get a registration key as well for Winlink Express. It stops the nagging. Okay, if you're okay with the nagging, you don't want to invest in it, or if you're in an EOC and for whatever reason the EC has decided it isn't important to have the license, then okay, you know, you just have to live with the little nags, is all, or you're using the equipment. But you see how we've now used 3 different transports to check our email in Winlink. So that covers all of the transport configuration and your education in transport. Um, I am going to show you one additional thing that has to do just in general in the software application. I am going to show you how to send a check-in via a IC213. So what I've done is I've collected to create. Boy, I've clicked to create a new message. I am going to go to select template. I'm going to hit the plus by standard templates, and I'm going to go under the ICS USA forms, and I am going to select a 213. And that now has opened the browser. Oop. Now, I'm going to click that my incident is going to be area 2 check-in, and my position, okay, it's going to, so I'm going to be sending this to the ECSS, or East County Sheriff Station, and this is going from K6 VC-ACS. The subject is check in. When I click on date, it will automatically set the date. When I click on time, it will automatically set the time. And my message is no traffic for the net. I'm approving this. It's going to be me approving it. So I am just going to put in my call sign. So that's, I'm using, actually I'll put in my real call sign because I'm the actual person that's sending this. And my position is RADO, which is short for radio operator. Now, it's got my longitude and latitude by my grid square. I am going to go ahead and submit this. It's going to tell me that it's going to be transferred over here. Now, notice there's no to address. I need to send this to a Winlink address. So I'm going to send it. I got to click in here. I am going to send it to VC-ACS, right? And I'll hit tab, and it's going to put a semicolon after there. And that is a check-in to VC-ACS. Now, from here, I'm going to post to my outbox. Now, how should we send that? Well, I'm going to send it via Telnet. The reason is that I don't have an antenna on the radio this is hooked to really send messages much farther than inside the building. So we'll open Telnet, hit start, And this is going to go ahead and deliver my check-in. All set. Now, there is another way we can send this same message. And I can even resend it. I can go into Sent Items. I can double click this, right? Or actually, I can tell it to move it or copy it to Outbox. We'll start there. We'll tell it to move it to the Outbox. Now I can double click it and I can edit it. I am now going to send it to VC-ACS, but I am going to send it to a post office message, okay? Now, sending it as a post office message, we'll go ahead and post it to the outbox. Sending it as a post office message is going to send it via a different method. This is a radio only method, and there happens to be a local post office in the building. Okay. One other important setting that I want to show you on this before we go much further is let's take a look at one setting in here under messages, I believe. I always have trouble finding this. Forum settings. I have to tell it to attach XML messages to internet as well. If I don't, then check-ins that I send with forms will never go out through to be delivered to the internet. Okay, and I want them to be delivered to the internet. Now you notice also I'm in my outbox here and it says PO. So that says it has to go to a post office. All right, so now I can go right here and I can go to, oh, let's do Vara. Okay, so we'll do Vara FM. I'll open this and I am going to change my direct connection to 11. And that is the ID of the local post office here. And we're going to go ahead and send it. Now this will come back. Of course, it's going to tell me this is a demo. Continue to evaluate. And this informs me that it is a network-only post office. And now it's going to hopefully receive the message. So it is sending it via Vara. There it goes. A little progress bar tells me what it's doing. Because it is radio, it takes a little longer. But not too long, really, when you think about what we're sending. All done. It's happy. And it's now disconnecting. And if there had been any messages waiting for K6 VCS, they would have come in during that connection. All right, we'll close that. And now I am going to pass it back to our good friend who is your instructor to have him answer any questions you might have. I will be back again because we still have to cover repairs. So we'll go from there. Well, it's me, Stu, AG6AG, back once more. And, if you've taken the entire beginning portion all the way to here with the training course, you're ready for heavy diagnostic work. What that really means is, sending a Winlink message, if everything is working, is pretty easy. I mean, yeah, you've got some gotchas. You got to make sure that you choose the right transport that's going to work. You got to make sure that you choose the right form. You got to get through the little idiosyncrasies of the program. You got to decide if it's going to be a Winlink message or a local post office message, or if it's going to be a peer-to-peer message. You've got to look at all of those things and make adjustments before you send the message and during sending the message. But if everything on the system is working properly, that message will go through, and your job at that point is kind of done. Um, After all, it's really just elaborate email. Now, all that said, it's vital to us because it does things that our served agencies and partner agencies want us to do. But what happens if it doesn't all work? Well, there you are in the EOC. You might be the only one in there in an emergency, and you've got to send a message. Oh, well, all right. You've got to do some diagnostics as quickly as possible, of course, but as efficiently as possible. The first thing you got to decide is this emergency traffic? And if I can't send it this way, I need to find another way to send it right now. And that would mean that you'd try another method, such as, phone, via the radio or whatever, to get to where it's got to go. And yeah, that could be difficult because it could be a reasonably long text message, right? And there may be things that you've got to phonetically spell. But guess what? It's not your job to send forms. It's not your job to send digital messages. It's your job to send messages, no matter what you have to do that. If we're down to the point where they're using us for priority traffic, then guess what? You need to get the message through. Normal traffic, all right, take some time. Let's go ahead and, before we send the message, see if we can fix it. Okay? And about fixing it. So go through the process and do the things that you can do as quickly as possible. Okay? And when we are looking to fix or correct something, always remember we're really not looking for what's wrong. We're verifying things that are right. Okay? Sounds a little counterintuitive. You're trying to fix something. But as you go through all the kind of diagnostic steps that you need to do to kind of make sure where the problem is, looking for that problem, you're actually just verifying stuff, right? You're saying, oh, that looks good. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Ooh, that looks bad. I'll fix it. You fix that and then you test again and it still doesn't work. Well, okay, I need to continue going. That looks good. In other words, there may be multiple problems. There may be things that are wrong that aren't in that little list. What you have to do is verify what's right. And if everything verifies right, theoretically, everything should work. And when it doesn't, it's beyond your scope to be able to get there to fix that problem. Okay? As long as you've done your job verifying everything that you control, then you've done your job trying to fix it. Okay? At that point, you need to make those other decisions just like you did with that priority message. Anyway, so let's kind of get on with it, right? I mean, that's really what we're looking at doing. So, hey, what do we have? Well, yeah, we've got hardware, software, transport, delivery. Anything we can do with delivery? Probably not. But the first place you're going to look is you're going to look at hardware. Okay, that's going to be where you want to be. So, do a visual inspection on the packet equipment. Okay, on the digital equipment. Verify that the signal link is on. It's got a green light. Verify the radio is on. Verify the radio is on the right frequency. You don't know how many times you walk into an EOC and somebody has changed the frequency or bumped up against it or whatever, and it's not on the right frequency. So verify that. Okay. And you should know what your frequencies are. You should know them here. At least if they're not written down in your EOC, write them down someplace where they're easily referenced, okay? But just do a quick visual inspection from the outside. And if everything looks good, if it looks like, you know, the knobs are still turned up, they're not turned all the way down. The volume knob, if you're doing direct audio access from the radio, is where it should be. I like mine at 9 o'clock. Your mileage may vary. You need to know where that is because let's face it, you need to understand how everything works. Now, obviously, inspect the TNC. Now, I'm not saying or the TNC, the signal link, or your audio device, your sound card. I'm not saying pick it up and twist it all around and jostle it, okay? But take a look. You know, kind of crock your neck down, look down, up. Okay, everything's plugged in. Everything looks good on the back of the signal link, right? Now we want to check the connections on the radio. We want to verify those connections on that radio. It's got to be plugged in. Do a visual, okay? You don't, at this point, need to start wiggling stuff around or unplugging and plugging stuff in. Just do a visual. The visual looks good. All right, good enough. You've verified, for the most part, that's pretty good shape. Now we got to get started with the computer. Right? Well, from a physical standpoint, the computer is fairly straightforward. Really, all we have is a USB cable that is going to that audio device. The audio device is doing all the heavy lifting. All this USB cable does is transfer analog versions of the digital content. Okay. Heck, if you could figure out a way to pump in the type in the letters and have the computer spew out the words, it's the same thing. They're converting a digital content into an analog signal encoded in language, right? Same thing. Um, verify that they're plugged in. Everything else, that everything looks good and everything's working at that point, right? Now, we've pretty much confirmed the hardware at that point. We can scratch that one off. Now it's time to start looking at the software and the way the PC is configured. So let's talk about that. First off, I verified that all of my settings are correct on the computer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch, well, we'll go ahead and launch Winlink. Now that I've looked at everything and maybe I've plugged something back in, maybe I've corrected something. At this point, it's time for me to test the system. So I'm going to go ahead and test the system really quickly. Uh, I'll do it with Vara FM, and I'll open Vara FM, and I'll see if I can connect to where I need to connect to, or where I know I usually always can connect to. And I'll start and see what's going on. It looks like I'm connected. Let's see if it goes through the entire process. I've got my little demo wine over here. I don't have to shut that in order to allow the system to continue to work. It's just an annoyance, and it's designed to be an annoyance, right? So this is now checking to see if there's any messages up there, and there aren't. All right. Everything works now. Our job's done. What if it doesn't? All right. Well, what's the next thing I want to check? Next thing I want to check is I want to go to the start menu, right hand mouse click it, and go to the device manager. And in the device manager, I want to open audio inputs and outputs, and I want to verify that I have the line and the speaker for USB audio. And this might say microphone USB audio. It depends on what version of the signal link you have. But I need to verify these are in here and there's no yellow things or red things that are associated next to them telling me that they're broken or there's a configuration problem. These all look good. So next thing I want to do is I want to open, I'm trying to use Vara FM and Vara FM didn't work, right? So I'm also going to close all my Winlink windows, okay? So now I'm working just within this module of VARA. Open it up. I'll open up settings, and the first thing I'm going to look at is sound card. I'm going to verify that these two devices are the external devices that I want. There you go. Now I'm going to grab my HT. Now I'm going to simulate an HT over here by just turning the volume up on this frequency on a monitoring radio. And I'm going to hit this tune button, and I'm going to see if I hear a tone. I hear a tone. All right. That tells me that there is output to the radio. The radio is keying, and it is going out over the air. It's important I hear that and I see it key on the radio, right? Let's say, just for fun, this is actually set to the wrong thing, my output device. Watch what happens. I hear the noise, but the radio isn't keying. It's actually coming out the speaker of the laptop, okay? That's an immediate giveaway. How can I verify that that's what's going on? So I can hit tune, and I can reach over and turn off the radio on the receive side, but I'm still hearing the noise. Well, there you go. That implies that it's wrong. How do I know that it's coming out the right port? Well, I have the radio turned down, I hit tune, then I bring the volume up on the radio. There it is. Okay? Very simple, but you verified now that your transmit is working. Now what we want to do with VARA is the same thing that we did when we set it up. We want to do a quick auto tune and see how it looks connecting to a station. And any more questions about this, feel free to go back in this video and watch setting up the audio levels again. All right. So that tells me I'm able to send, okay, via VARA to that station that I use for testing. Now, we've eliminated at least the audio configuration for VARA. Let's say we're trying to send packet. Excuse me, we can do the same thing by opening sound modem. Now, we want to do the same thing. We want to look at our devices, and we want to verify that our devices up here are properly set to our audio device for digital. Okay? You can take a look at the settings. Odds are they haven't changed. I'm not encouraging you not to look at the settings, but I am encouraging you just verifying, okay? I can also look and make sure the modem's set the way it's supposed to be, and on and on and on. Now, that all looks good. I can go to calibration, and I can put out a high tone. And the same thing goes. If I hear it coming out of the computer speakers, I know that that's wrong, right? If I hear it coming out of the radio, I know that that's working. So now that doesn't test our receive, and we can actually reach over to the radio, and we can turn the squelch off, and we can see that our receive is working. So I'll turn the squelch back up. Now, also, since this is sound modem, I have an extra little toy here called Easy Term that I can use to connect to a TNC. So I'll go ahead, let me connect to VC-EDU. I know I can almost always connect to that. I heard both sides of the communication. I'll send a list. Okay, so I'm listening for a couple different things. I'm listening for about the same audio level on both items, okay? If the same audio level is there, then my transmit is about the same as the transmit volume that's being sent back to me by the other machine. Now, if I don't hear the machine coming back to me, I know that, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong. Or if it's really scratchy and garbled, there could be a problem with that host that I'm trying to get a hold of. So that shows another problem, okay? But that probably isn't a problem on your side. It may be a problem on the remote side. There may be something wrong. Now, remember, we talked about things that were outside our control. So, how do we check the stuff that's inside our control? We would have to go to another host or another system. And we also could do that in Winlink, of course, right? And I could change to a packet Winlink, open the session. And this one, I could go to AG6AG-10 rather than 11. And again, I'm hearing about the same audio level on both sides, right? And I've successfully connected, so there's nothing wrong here, okay? Let's say, though, I didn't successfully connect. It's not syncing up or whatever, okay? Are the audio levels the same? Does everything seem to be sounding right, okay? My system's going to have a distinct sound if it's using sound modem with packet. The other system may not be using a sound modem with packet, and that sound may be different. But are the levels the same? And is it exchanging information? Because I can see that right there on the screen, right? All right. So this worked. But what if it doesn't, but all this looks good? Well, all of it isn't going to look good if it's not working, right? This is probably where you're going to find your problem. And I'll let you in on a little secret, okay? There are really only two major problems that we actually see when we go out on site. Um, well, three, but two that hit us all the time, okay? The first problem is that the USB got moved from one port to another and it re identified the USB audio device. All right. And the diagnostics on that again, right hand mouse click, look at device manager, look at the audio inputs and outputs, open up one of your transports like VARA FM if that's the one you're having trouble with. And by the way, VARA FM could be set fine, but if you're trying to set packet, then you need to check the settings on that as well. But come on in here, look at the sound card, see if that sound card has changed in identification here, right? They need to match. That's bottom line. What causes that? All sorts of things can cause it. An update can cause it. The biggest thing that causes it is plugging the sound device into another USB port, not having everything plugged into the USB port when you start the system. Uh, that's all, almost always, okay. The number one problem that we have is sound card re identification. Second biggest problem, right up there with the first one, is levels being changed externally or on the computer for audio. That really happens more than you might think. You know, I say do a visual on the signaling. Remember, it's got adjustment knobs on it. Don't, when you're trying, if you pick it up and you're looking at it, don't bump into one of the knobs. When the signal link as is at the location, you should probably put it in a position that is going to be more beneficial of it not getting bumped into. Okay. That's my best advice on that. If you have an internal device, okay, or a device that doesn't have any external adjustments like a signal link, then hey, you need to verify the settings on your PC's audio volume. And again, to get to that, we would just right-hand mouse click. We would go to settings, over to system, over to sound, and then you would scroll down to more sound settings, and this will pull up the sound device settings for your device, and you can just go in here and double check your levels. They should almost never be over about 85. Sometimes you're going to see them at 100. 100 can mean it's over driving, and you would hear that. When you start digging into levels, you're going kind of deep. So remember that you've got to be able to have the equipment like a second radio you can listen to and all that stuff if you start messing with this. Okay. Um, and of course, the enhancements you want turned off. You want, we go through all these settings during the earlier part of the class. I'm not going to break back into it. And again, same thing on your recording. You're going to look at this and go, all right, what are my levels? This is 44. That's fine. That's where we want it. Now we're going to look at our listen side of this. Okay. And under our listen side of this, we're going to make sure it's unchecked. Very important. If by chance somebody checks it because they're trying to figure something out, what will happen is it will retransmit what's coming into it and create echo, or a slight delay between the two will ruin your outbound digital signal. Okay? Anyway, so that pretty much covers about everything. What are the real issues that we have to remember when we're doing diagnostics? Well, one, remember that you're always looking for things that are right. Once you find something that's wrong or broken, take the opportunity to fix it, test it, and if it's still not working, continue down the road of checking for things that are right until you run out of things that are right. Remember that once you run out of things that are right, you might want to repeat the entire process one more time just to verify from start to finish. But remember the amount of time you're spending trying to fix it. If you have nothing to do, if you're not sending messages, if there's no pressure on you, you can continue to look at the thing till the cows come home. But there aren't that many things that you have control over that you can check. And always remember, the only things that you can check are the things you have control over. A great example is a problem with the coax or the antenna. Well, everything seems to be going out, but nothing's answering you. Okay, I've got a communications problem here. Could it be a bad antenna? Sure. Would I be able to pick up, on an HT sitting next to the radio, it transmitting? Absolutely, I'd be able to hear it, right? I'd be able to hear its quality. Doesn't mean that's the quality that's going out the antenna. So keep that stuff in mind. And always remember, never forget, you cannot say, I cannot send this message. You cannot fall into that trap. There are always alternatives. And if you got to go find a megaphone and yell the message across, yes, of course I'm exaggerating, but you have to find a way to send that message. A lot of cases, they hand you a form, you type it all in, it's beautiful, you can send it, and there'll be pretty much a guarantee that they'll be able to deduce what it's trying to say on the other side. But if you can't do that, always go back to the basics, right? Reach out, grab your microphone, send the message that way. And again, don't be silly with the concept if somebody sends a giant form and says hi, do you actually need to send that form? Probably not. You could take care of that on phone, right? And that probably is a better choice for you to do it that way and not waste your resources and your time, right? Ideally, quick messages, questions, and answers can be resolved as long as you have notes about them and log them locally, and the other side's logging them, so you have you're keeping track. You can basically achieve the same thing as a digital message. But again, remember spelling's important. Anyway, hey, that's all I got. Um, at the end of the video, your instructor should have further instructions and study items for you. I hope you enjoyed the class. Do me a favor and send me an email if you did, or if you didn't, if you have comments that you think I need to make changes because things aren't clear enough or your understanding of it didn't quite come through. Go ahead and send those to Stu, that's Sierra Tango Uniform, at ag6ag.org. That's it. Thank you so much, and hope to hear you on the air.